Tuesday morning. This past Tuesday or the one before last, we would have been sledding or drinking hot chocolate or who knows what we would do. But we're finally out, sun's out, so we get to spend some time together. This morning, I wanted to just kind of share with you some things that have been on my heart the last couple weeks. And I hope this makes sense because there's a little bit more of a scattered thought approach to today. But I've had this reoccurring thought that I've shared with several friends about how important it is to live our life and not live someone else's life. And I believe I may have shared this a couple weeks ago, but in a sense, Nashville as a city has never been better. Nashville as a city has never been more popular. It's never been hotter, not just in America, but also around the world. I mean, Nashville, in a sense, is on fire, and the world's eyes, and certainly the country's eyes. And I was talking to someone yesterday, or a couple of days ago, and they were relocating here from California, and they were sharing with me why they were moving to Nashville. And I felt like it was a little bit more of a broken record conversation because I have had several people moving from California who have all said the exact same thing, who are unrelated to one another. I laughingly told them, I said, I kind of feel like as we have gone through the January election, the inauguration, and there was like the election that took place, now here comes the second election. And this election is people are voting with their feet, and they're like physically picking their family up in their life and moving to locations that align them. And so as this family was sharing with me why they were coming to Nashville, it was just a reminder about how Nashville has done so well as a city for so long. And how, in a sense, the city that has been built by people who've come before us and done a really good job. We get to drive on streets that we did not have to build the streets. We get power poles that deliver us power and cable and all the stuff that we didn't have to put up. We have water and sewer that bring us utilities to our house that we didn't have to dig the holes. We have so many privileges and advantages to not just live in Nashville, but just to be alive in this day and age. I was over the weekend, I asked some friends, I was like, if there was a time period in which you could have lived, what time period would you have wanted to live? And it was fun to hear people's perspective of like, oh, I'd love to live during the Roman times. And then they were like, well, but man, they didn't have air conditioning back then. That was really, I'd love to live during like the Civil War or Revolutionary War. Like there's like so much history that was taking place. Yeah, but at that time, you would have like ride a horse everywhere, and I'm not really into horses. Like you would see people like had romanticized about a time period, but then they would kind of back up because like what you would have to live, like you didn't have indoor plumbing, you didn't have air conditioning, you didn't have like a car. So we, in a sense, are living in the most prosperous time in humanity. The power to have just more information accessible to our fingertips than the President of the United States did just a couple of years ago. So like if you go back to George Bush or Bill Clinton, we have more information and more capabilities than they did. I mean, there was a story, the guy that I was listening to that used to be an advisor for Bill Clinton, and this was back in the early to mid 90s, and they were talking about how he, the president, did not have an email at the time, and how it was sometime around the early to mid 90s where Bill came to this advisor and said, hey, did you know this thing called an email? Like you actually don't have to like send like real letters. Like it will come and like those computers, like we could put one in my office and we'll actually get a real email, and it's like instead of the letter. I mean, it's kind of funny to think about, like that's not that long ago. So in a sense, we are going through radical, I wouldn't even say changes, because sometimes people have an aversion for the word change, but we are going through radical metamorphoses. Like things are getting faster and there's becoming more connectivity and there's more possibilities. I remember in 11th grade, the way my algebra teacher would teach, the first part of the class, we would be in, basically she would teach the subject. And then for the last part of the class, we would be in total quiet and we'd have to do the subject. And I don't know if she just didn't like us that much or what, but we'd always have like, she wanted total solitude at the end of the class for about 20 to 30 minutes. And so there was no noises. And one time in 11th grade, I remember all of a sudden there was like this loud noise coming out from like behind her desk. And everybody in the class, I mean, we knew like don't make noises. We're like, what is that noise? noise? It was like, wah, 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 wah. And I was like, what is that noise? And she got really red in the face. She goes, I'm so sorry. My husband just bought me a thing called a cell phone. And she reaches behind her desk out of her bag and she pulls out this block. And she was like, oh gosh, he's calling me. And she goes, yes, honey, it is working. No, it does work. It's not plugged in the wall. Yeah, no, I know it's really amazing. But listen, I'm in class. I have to go. Yeah, I'm excited about this thing too. It's pretty cool. It's going to change. And I remember thinking in algebra class, like, the world is about to change forever. Like what I just experienced was not just like something's not tied to a wall. You have freedom. Like you can like actually move around and this thing's going to ring. So I say all that to say is the world has progressed. It has evolved. It's gone through a metamorphosis. And the sliver in which we live right now, we have infinitely more power and capabilities than pretty much everyone in the history of the planet, period. We have cell phones, we have computers, we have cars, we have an education, whether that's elementary, high school, even maybe into college. Like we have the ability to read. We have the ability to pretty much do whatever we want to do, whether you're male, female, no matter what race you are. I mean, we have unlimited capabilities in our world right now that has not been experienced in previous times. So it's a privilege. And it's a great opportunity. And so we look at like what we are able to basically lay hold of, and we also look at to the city in which we live into. We look at the age in which we are. We're in the prime of the history of the world. There is not crazy war going on right now. We live in one of the greatest cities in the country. We are in the prime of our life. And we just happen to be in an industry and related industry that is probably one of the most popular, talked about, interested. Everyone has a need for Maslow's hierarchy of need of water and shelter. We get to meet the basic human need of shelter, and we get to make sure that people have a roof over their head. And it happens to be a very interesting subject. People want to know about how's the market doing? How's real estate doing? So in a sense, we have the greatest situation in the history of mankind is the way that I see it. And so I really want us to be aware that we have an incredible opportunity, not just for ourselves, but as we work, and not just for ourselves and our work, but also for our clients and our families. I'm just really excited about where we are in the history of Nashville, in the history of our industry, in the history of our civilization, in the history of our lives. We have an incredible opportunity. So whenever it's our turn to show up on, in a sense, the timeline of humanity, when it's our dot on that timeline, how are we going to show up on that dot or in that timeline of humanity? And so I just happened to have a baton in my desk upstairs. And I was like, I've been thinking about what does it mean for us, in a sense, if we're going to run the 4x100 relay. And so whenever you get to run a race, and you're in a relay race, there could be great parents, grandparents, parents, you, your kid. We all get to run a leg of the race. And in a sense, this is our time to run our leg of the race. I find, unfortunately, that too many people take the baton on their timeline and they start to say, well, what would make someone else happy? What have I been conditioned by my parents, by my teachers, by my pastor, by, good intending people? They got to run their leg of the race. We have a unique opportunity in this time, in this moment, for such a time as this, to run our leg of the race. And I'd be damned if I run someone else's race, right? Because we get this gift of life. We get this opportunity to make it whatever we want it to make. Yeah, one of the most impressionable things that I've seen as far as like a speech is concerned is Steve Jobs' Stanford commencement address. If you've never watched it, I highly recommend you watching it no less than 10 times. It's not that long. It's only like 15 or 20 minutes. It's relatively short. But he has some really profound nuggets of not just wisdom, but perspective. And perspective, for me, is sometimes somebody's vantage point. They're able to see something a little bit clearer, a little bit more uniquely different than someone else. It's not necessarily an understanding that maybe that they uncovered, but they see the world a little bit different. I don't know that there's been too many people who's ever walked the face of the earth that saw the world as different, unique, as possible, like the world of possibilities was much broader for Steve Jobs. So one of the things he said in this Stanford commencement address was this thing that we call life was created by people no smarter than you and I. So live your life. And I think about our industry and what we're doing. This thing that we call real estate was created by people no smarter than you and I. So why should we continue to live their life? We get to live our life. And so I think that there is certainly wisdom, and I think that there is certainly benefit to learning from the past, to honoring and appreciating tradition, appreciating things that are I guess, tried and true. However, we get the privilege of kind of, in a sense, taking those nuggets of principles, those truths, those wisdoms, and taking a step forward. And so I want us as a company, I want us as individuals to have a windshield mentality. When we drive down the road, we do not look through the rearview mirrors. When we drive down the road, we are looking through the windshield. We're looking at where we're going more so than we're looking in the past. There are times to where, like whenever you're driving, you may want to look in a side lane to make sure you don't run into a car. There's times to where you use a windshield or a rearview mirror as a reference point before you make a decision. However, you're not predominantly driving down the road looking through the rearview mirror. So I just want to give us a little bit of a permission today to say, what if we were windshield drivers? What if we appreciated the past of our parents, our pastors, our teachers, our friends, society? Like we are all conditioned to some extent. How can I say, hey, I appreciate that, but this is my leg of the race, and I'm going to, in a sense, run a leg of the race that is going to be with possibility, that's going to be filled with new discoveries, that's going to be filled with a bit of anticipation and maybe some bit of recklessness. Maybe the way that I run my race is, it would be fair to say that in ways I am very unreasonable, and I want to be unreasonable. I want to be irrational at times because I don't want to play life so safe that I played. It's almost like going to bowl and you have the bumpers up, and it's like, I didn't gutter ball the whole time. Yeah, but that just wasn't that fun. You never found out how great you really could have been. So for us, I want us to take the bumpers off. I want us to be able to be willing to throw some gutter balls. I want us to have a little bit more excitement about life and deal in the world of possibility and not live in a world exclusively on someone else's lap. And so, these batons, I got a number of these years ago, is whenever a friend or a family or someone passes away, I like to give these away to someone and let them know, hey, this is your leg of the race now. It's your chance to run this lap. And I think that there's plenty of verses that talk about how we're surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses, people who've gone on before us, who are cheering us on in our race. And I think that there's a very important reminder that each of us has the privilege to pick up our baton and run. And sometimes it does take a passing to bring a little bit more of sobriety to life. It does take a passing to help us understand like life is not forever. So what are you going to do while you're here? And so for me, this is a reminder about this is our time. This is our life. And so why are we going? So today I want to talk to you very quickly about the call to greatness. And, greatness, there may be like, oh, greatness, I want to be humble. I want to be, kind. I want to be whatever. There can be a aversion to this idea of greatness. Sometimes people do not aspire for greatness because they do not want to feel disappointment. So to avoid disappointment or to avoid a feeling of not enough, I would rather not even try than to try something and then to not have it actualized. So I would rather just play it safe within the bumpers of life. So when we talk about greatness, it could be the call to live a magnificent life, or it could be said the call to live life on your terms, or the call to live the life that you would be proud of, or the call to live a life with no regret. So you can take off the word greatness and put in whatever you want to put. For me, the word, and I'll explain to you why here in a second. But for greatness is, why is it important for you to be great? And I hope that there's something that everyone understands, that it is very, very, very important that you're great. And we're going to define greatness in some terms that anyone can obtain greatness. So why is it important for you to be great? The first question would be, what is greatness? So I'm curious, two people, just throw out, what do you think it means to be great? There's no right or wrong answer. Just two people.
Fulfill potential.
Fulfill potential means to be great. I like that a lot. Who else? What does it mean to be great?
Be extraordinary in your chosen field.
To be extraordinary. Yeah, so to go up and above and beyond the call of duty, or up and beyond average or mediocre, what's expected. Like there is a bit of strain or striving, like you stretched yourself, you pushed beyond a limit. Both of those are accurate for me. There's a couple questions for me that I think is very healthy to wrestle with. I think that there is wisdom in not coming to conclusions too quickly. I think there's wisdom to not come up to answers very quickly. As you have it's almost like, for me, a question cube. I'm okay with not coming to a conclusion or an answer. Not. I want to wrestle with it and really think about the answer, because the quality of our lives a lot of times are determined by our questions. You ask bad questions, you get, why does this always happen to me? Versus, what could life be trying to teach me that is a gift? Or how could life be trying to stretch me in this moment to push me beyond what maybe I thought was possible? So you ask bad questions, you get bad answers. So I think the first thing is like, what's a great question? And how do you deliberate in that question for a period of time that's going to help you to arrive at a good outcome? So, a question kind of wrestling with is, what am I going to do with our one life? We don't have a do-over, a second leg of the race. We get one run, one lap around the track. So with that in mind, what are you going to do with this one life? You get to do whatever you want to do with it. It's your choice. So it's really important. I had a call with a friend the other day, and I told him, sometimes there has been seasons of life where I felt like I was climbing a ladder, and I don't want to say to the top of the ladder, but I got high enough up to where I realized, like, dadgummit, I'm against the wrong wall. I wish I'd have never started to take steps up a ladder and trying to succeed at things, because there is failure in succeeding at the wrong things. And so it's really important, before you ever start to climb a ladder, to examine, is this wall the wall that I want to go up? And so when we talk about, what will you do with your one life, before I just break off on a dead run in a sprint, is this the path that I should be down with all of my might and all of my vigor and all of my energy and all of my focus? Is this the right path to be running down? And it's okay to let people just go on and run on and let them succeed and do their thing, and to be able to hang back and say, is this my path? Is this the thing that I'm going to commit my one life to? So the first question is, what will you do with your one life? The second question is, how will you spend your life? The word spend means there's a finite amount of resources. When you spend a dollar bill, you release that dollar bill and it never comes back. Now, if you invest a dollar bill, it could come back with some buddies. In our life, we will not get today back. So as we spend this day, how are we putting those efforts into something that's going to have a future benefit to someone else, to ourselves, to our mental growth, to our clients? Are we putting it in a direction that's going to have a positive outcome, that's going to produce a harvest? The third question is, what is your purpose? Listen, if you're not really clear about what your purpose is in life, I would absolutely have a few sleepless nights about this answer and starting to work through this. And the reason why is because it's kind of like climbing that wall. As you climb the wall, sometimes you find that your ladder's not against the right wall. You're like, dang it, I wish I'd never started. So for me, the purpose of my life is not really rooted in real estate. Real estate just happens to be the blank canvas, by which I can, like Rebecca said, exhaust my potential. Real estate just happens to be the thing that I know, so I have a skill in it. And is this the end all be all for me for real estate? No, it's just I can paint on this canvas. I have a skill. It's interesting enough for me. I get to exhaust my potential. I think I have an unlimited resources or unlimited playing field. So it's not like, oh, I sell medical device. This is my territory. I only work in this area. I only work in that area. In real estate, I can touch anybody's life anywhere. And it really serves them at the basic level, the basic human need. So there's a question that I think that everybody has to make a choice in answering, and that's the question of, do you want to be great? Is it important to you to become great? And it's as you define it. There's not an answer that I'm going to give to you, but you can decide what's greatness to you. So like for Julian here, Julian talked about for him to stretch, to strive, to push, to be great at what he's doing, like to go up and above and beyond. So you get to decide what that is. But if you never commit to greatness, you never commit to the best version of yourself, or you never commit to exhausting your potential, to me, it's a life that's miscarried. I know my wife and I know plenty of people, and we've experienced this, to have a miscarriage. It's a sad thing. It's almost like a false start. It's like, oh man, really. But I find that some people are still alive and they're miscarrying their life. They're living in such a way. It's like, man, you just burn through 2 or 3 years of your life that you never get back, dabbling, uncommitted, hoping, trying, maybe we'll see. You didn't give it your all. That's a miscarried life. It's not something that you're actually building a block. So for me, it's really important to answer the call, do you want to be great? So there's a couple things I wanted to point out, and this is bringing in my faith journey. And so I'm not here to impose this upon you, but I'm here just to share with you my faith journey and what does it mean for me to be great. And there was this moment where this mom came to Jesus, and she had 2 boys, and they were called the sons of Zebedee. There's another translation that calls them the sons of thunder. Man, that sounds great, the sons of thunder. It didn't seem like the Sons of Thunder's mom would be coming to ask Jesus for help. It seems like the Sons of Thunder would have just got it done themselves. But here comes mom. And it said the mother of the sons of Zebedee came up to him with her sons, and kneeling before him, she asked him for something. And he said to her, "What do you want?" And she said to him, "Say to these 2 sons of mine are to sit one at your right hand and the other one at your left in your kingdom." Jesus answered, "You do not know what you're asking. Are you able to drink from the cup that I'm drink?" And they said to him, "We're able." And he said to them, "You'll drink my sit at my right hand and my left hand is not mine to grant, but it's for those whom have been prepared by my Father." And when the 10 heard it, they were indignant towards 2 brothers. So he had 12 disciples. 10 were mad at the 2 for even asking to sit on the right and left. Like, what the heck? What about us? So here's what Jesus says. But Jesus called them and said, "You know that the ruler of the Gentiles, Lord, is over them, and their great ones exercise authority over them." 26 is the verse. "It shall not be so among you, but whoever would be great among you must be your servant, and whoever would be first among you must be your slave. Even as the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life a ransom for many." So the key to greatness is to be about other people, is to serve others, is to look for opportunities to give of your life on their behalf. So there's 3 very powerful words here. He calls it a servant, a slave, and to serve. Like, those words are about contribution and giving of yourself to someone. There's a price to greatness, and the price, in a sense, is your death. The price is you giving of yourselves to people, even if it does not make sense at times. And so when I think about there's a call to greatness, it could be very easily said there's a call to servanthood. There's a call to contribution. There's a call to a life about others. There's a call to being the means, not the ends. So I really like the story about Jesus because I feel like it gives us an insight about his perspective. He didn't come to the mom and say, "Wait, you're going to ask? Wait, how dare you ask for your sons to be great?" He didn't like rebut her about that. He, in a sense, gave her a pathway to become great. So in a sense, I think that there is a importance and a calling for each one of us to be great. So greatness is about servanthood. It's about giving your lives for other people. At Scout, it's really important for us to be mindful that our life is to be contributive, and we are looking for opportunities and occasions to add more value to more people. Very simply, how can we add more value to more people? So there's a couple things I wanted to point out to you. First thing is this understanding that God is not into mediocrity. That's not something that whenever he created the universe, he's like, that'll do. That'll do. Hope there's enough oxygen that people survive over here. I mean, that's like, I'm going to make it in order and in balance. I'm going to make it awesome and beautiful and loving. So God's not in mediocrity. The next thing is God sent his most prized possession, his son Jesus, to earth. So it wasn't one of those things like whenever he's like, okay, these people need some help down there. Let's try to send some second place, or let's try to send some average angel down there and like, hey, see if you can't go down there and help them out a little bit. He took his most prized possession and he gave the best of the best. So when we talk about servanthood, we talk about serving other people. Jesus was a great man because he gave of himself. And so we see that the heart and nature of God, he's not in mediocrity. He gave the best, not the second best. So when we come to work, anything less than our best, I mean, that kind of sounds like a little rhyme, but anything less than our best is not acceptable. But it's serious. Like if we're not bringing our best, that's a problem. Number 3 is Jesus did not die on the cross for us to be mediocre. We're called to live a life after him. So for me, when I look at Jesus' life, it's like, you know what? He didn't hold back. It said he did not come to be served, but to serve. I mean, if anybody could have lived like in the lap of luxury and had, everything about him, it would have been Jesus. So in his life, he did not make it about himself. He made it about other people. So he didn't die on the cross and give everything for me to be average and for me to give a half-ass effort on my life. Or for me just to like, I'm going to trot this life out and just take it easy and do my thing. No, like I want to run with intensity, with focus, with motivation, because he gave it all. And so I think that whenever we want to honor someone who's given their life for us, it's very important to run in light of what he gave as the ultimate sacrifice. Number 4 is greatness is a vessel to reflect the greatness of God. So my hope is that people see our good works as a company and they glorify God. They're like, why do they charge the way they charge? Man, why do they work so hard? Man, why do they care so much? I hope they lean into that. Like, man, they're doing this because they want to reflect the nature of God. They want to reflect beauty. They want to reflect kindness. They want to reflect compassion and empathy and love and grace and all the virtues that are very admirable to live out. They're living that in work. That's just not normal in the business world. I want to be an exemplar of what a life of faith looks like in the workforce. So here's a principle for you guys. Your greatness in the kingdom of God does not diminish other people's greatness. Greatness is abundant. Sometimes it's like, okay, I don't want to really shine too bright because I don't want to make someone else look bad. It's not like there's like 100% greatness in the world, and like if you start to absorb a couple percent, like everybody else gets less. Like we can all respect and look at each other with a bit of authority of like, hey, you're a queen, you're a king, you're a king. Like we can look at each other as equals and say, you know what, I want to shine and I want to be great, and I'm not going to get low and make everybody feel really good around, like, because I don't want to outshine. My goal is not to outshine. My goal is to serve and to be great. And if the greatness comes as a result of serving, I'm not going to hide it. Like we have a great ability to serve people at our company. So we're not going to get low and get quiet and I don't want to, push too hard and push people away. No, we're awesome. We're a really good company. We have amazing offerings to our clients. We care deeply about our clients and how we're doing business. I don't think it's untouched in our city. This is not a competition with other people, but this is an obsession about being great and serving our customer at the deepest level possible. So I don't want us to ever shy away from the greatness that we are pursuing. The thing that I want you to understand is that you have a responsibility to be great. I think I've said this before, but Nick Saban talks about how great athletes or great players don't like mediocre players, and mediocre players don't like great athletes. I remember this in high school. We used to do these drills, and basically the whole team would have to run in a line around the soccer field. And whenever the coach would blow the whistle, the person in the back of the line would run to the front of the line. That was their sprint. And, like when I was a freshman, all the senior guys, they were always like, hey, freshman, when your time's the whistle's blown, you run to the front of the line, don't run fast. And, they want you to sprint to the front and kind of trot at the beginning so everybody else can kind of trot along together. And it's like, I remember as a freshman, I was like, man, these guys are some sissies. Like, we're actually like working to be slow. We're going to have to go out there on the field and play, and we're not going to be conditioned to play if we're all trying to just play small ball. So we have a responsibility to be great. If we're going to go out there and kick ass and take names, and we're going to be add more value to more people, and we're going to look to continue to expand, we have a responsibility to level up individually and level up collectively. In 1 Corinthians 9:24, this is a verse that sticks with me about this baton is, do you not realize that in a race everyone runs, but only one person gets a prize? So run to win. We're not handing out participation trophies. Like losers are losers for a reason. They need to suffer in their loser mentality. We run to win. This is not a socialist environment. The losers can go on. They don't need to get their participation trophies and like, hey, No, we are competitors, and the victory goes to the people who compete well. They run to win. They discipline. They got up. They trained. Like, does that make sense? So for us, I want us to run to win the race. So running your race, each of us have a race to run. The first is, I want you to understand that there is a cost to winning. And the cost is discipline. The cost is dedication. And the cost is commitment. People who are not disciplined, they're not dedicated, and they're not committed don't deserve crap. Nothing. Suffer. That's what they deserve, is suffering. Everyone has a choice to level up and say, you know what? I'm going to wake up. You know what? I'm going to go to work. You know what? I'm going to make my calls. I'm going to schedule my appointments. I'm going to do the disciplines necessary to produce the results that I want to have. Right? Does that make sense? So if we don't do that, then we deserve to go hungry. We deserve to have low sales. We deserve to not do very well in business or at life for that matter. You get what you deserve in a sense. So there's a cost to winning, and it's about discipline, dedication, and commitment. The next thing is there's a sacrifice that must be made. Each one of us have to make sacrifices, and that's more of a personal decision. And sacrifice, there's typically a pain with that, like, man, I don't want to get up that early. Man, I don't want to call these people. Like, I don't even know. It's going to be so awkward. Man, I don't want to go out there and knock on doors. Or, man, I don't want to schedule cold calls. Or, man, like whatever it is that you're scared to death of, there's a sacrifice. You have to put yourself on the line for rejection. Like, if we play it so safe that we only bowl with bumpers, that is so boring. Versus like, I got rejected from this client. I hoped that I would win them. I didn't win them. There's a feedback here. I'm not good enough, and I'm going to have to learn how to get better if I ever hope to land someone like that again. So sacrifices must be made to be great. The next thing is run your race that's specifically set for you. I don't know what your race is, but I got a sense that you know deep down. Now, whether you know it with your brain versus your heart is different. But I think you know deep down in your heart of hearts what's in alignment with your nature, what's in alignment for the way that you've been built, what's in alignment with the way God designed you. I absolutely believe that everything that you need in life is within you right now. And so you have to go on that internal journey to mine it out. And I have found for myself, almost always, it is not mental in nature. Mental in nature is like overcoming adversity, like showing up every day and working. But the self-discovery and understanding what race was set for me is typically an inside job. It's a heart job. Like, for example, when I was a kid, pretty much every day I came home from school, I'd come straight home from school, I'd get on my bike and I would ride. And I would ride as far in any and every direction as I possibly could, because I always wanted to press the bounds of like, I've never made it on the other side of the river. I've never made it to the lake. I've never made it to the other side of the lake. I've never made it. I would explore every single day when I got on my bike. And so like this sense of expedition, this sense of new discovery, this sense of pressing the boundary, this sense of, I don't want to live on 110 Mount Vernon Drive forever. I want to get on a bike and see how far before it gets dark. And I'd come in past dark and eat dinner, and my parents were like, where'd you go today? I'm like, well, I found this new cove in the lake, or you know what? I found down the river, if you go down this path, and I would bring back turtle shells. I mean, if you went in my room as a kid, I would have mason jars of snakes that I'd catch. If you went in my room as a kid, I'd have turtle shells. I would have literally every bug that you could possibly imagine that existed in Tennessee. I would catch the bugs. I put them in a jar. I'd drop a little, I'd take home the jar. If it was a bug I hadn't seen before, I'd take an alcohol swab on a cotton ball and I'd drop it in there. They would die over dinner. I'd pull them out and then I'd spread them out and I'd glue them. And I had like this every bug I thought that was awesome. I thought every kid did that. I figured out later that's just really weird. And, I thought it was cool. So what does that mean today is I like to press the boundaries. I like to discover. I like to go and find out like what's, my boundary, like how far can I push it? Like, is there something else out there? So when I talk about the race that's set before you, for me is about discovery. For me is about pressing. It's about an adventure. It's about the unknown. I feel very comfortable not knowing what the heck I'm doing because that was in my heart as a kid. So when I say sometimes to figure these things out is not just a mental thing. Like, okay, it's the race that's set before me. What am I supposed to be about? I'm going to mentally power through this. What I enjoy as a kid, I think that we were most like our original self the earlier in life that we are. As we get older and get away from being a kid, we start to get conditioned and we start to become someone that maybe we weren't intended to be. But if you can go back whenever you were a kid and see really what brought interest to you, I'm not a bug collector today, but what about that, the elements of that play in today? I love finding something new, something unique, something different that I've never seen or experienced before. And I want to capture that. And I want to come back to people like, hey, check out this book that I read. Hey, I went to this course and here's something that I learned. I like to go find something and then share it with people. Like whenever people came over our house, hey, let me show you this praying mantis I found. This is a really cool one. I've never seen one this color. Hey, look at this walking stick I found. I thought this is a real stick and then it moved. I loved every time my parents would have people over. I'm like, come look at my bug collection. Come look at my snakes. Come look at my turtle shells. I mean, it was Marty Stauffer at Wild America would have loved me running your race. Keep your eyes on the finish line. Once you know what you're about, know what you're going to commit your life to, you don't look at circumstances or the environment to inform whether or not you should keep going or not. When you're all in, you don't count the cost. I had a friend the other day call me. He's thinking about starting a company, and he was wanting me to help get some perspectives on cost for certain stuff, and he's really trying to decide this is the best thing for him if he's going to do this. And in my head, I'm like, this discussion does not need to happen. Like if you're all in and you're committed, you don't count the cost. Setting up your EIN number and you're paying your franchise and excise taxes, it is going to be what it's going to be. If you're called to start a business, then you have to start it regardless of what the state's going to charge you, regardless of what the LLC cost is going to be, regardless of what, why are we even asking these questions? If you're all in, you don't count the cost. You just say, yes. Tell me how much, tell me what it is. Running your race, the enemy isn't being mediocre about stopping you from winning. Each of us have an enemy. There are kind of some, I don't go too far in this, but there's a term called a saboteur. Each of us have a saboteur. There's something inside of us that kind of like whispers in our ear that says, you're not enough, or like, hey, that wasn't very good, or you're weird, or hey, so-and-so doesn't like you. It's like that we have these internal voices that just speak to the worst part of us. A friend of mine, I was with him this past week, and he told me, he's like, man, one of the craziest things is almost every time I had a show, or when I do have a show, whenever I am perform and I'm walking off the stage, almost immediately there's something that goes off in my head that's like, that wasn't very good. That like you didn't hit this note. Somebody, people didn't cheer loud enough or long enough, or it wasn't. Like he's like, I can't even get to the dressing room without feeling that I failed. And he's like, I don't know what it is, but there's just this voice in your head that goes right off. I have the exact same thing that happens almost every single day. There's voices that go off. It's like, that was really stupid. I can't believe you said that. Hey, you don't know what you're doing. We all have that. And I think to deny it and suppress it only undermines us versus just acknowledging like, hey, there's the voice. You're the liar. You're the enemy. This is out to I'm going to believe the truth. I'm going to step into the truth. I hear what you're saying. I don't believe it or lie. The truth is this. So you got to have a way to come back to the truth. So your enemy isn't being mediocre about stopping you from winning. Sometimes it's an inside saboteur job that's just talking in your ear that's keeping you where you are. I think that, especially in the Southern culture, and then also in like the church culture, like there's this idea about being humble, stay humble, and don't stay too much, and don't be too known, and you kind of like shy away from. I don't want to say the light, but you try to like keep yourself low because you don't want to be perceived as a prideful person. I think there's a better word, and the word for me is meekness. And meekness is not diminishing your capabilities, your powers. Meekness is about strength under control. Like, it doesn't mean that you're weaker. You actually have the capability, but it's under control, and how you present and how you push yourself is not coming from a place of, look at me, look at who I am. I want people to know. It's, no, I'm accomplished. I've given my life to this endeavor. There are some accolades that come along with this. That means that there's authority. I'm not trying to gain popularity, but I want to have authority to be able to speak into people's lives that are trying to make informed decisions. So as we buy services and products from people, we look for authority. Like, is this person qualified to help guide me on my finances? If they're not, I don't want to talk to them. So how do I know they have authority? Well, if they don't tell me, then I'm not going to know. So we have to be willing to step into authority and have some courage about having an evidence of success. So here's principle number 2. It's what happens in the unseen that makes what is seen possible. There are so many times in my career that I pull all-nighters, that I'm working on something. I'm like, does this really matter? Is this really going to be something that's going to be beneficial? Is this going to be something that... And I'll give you one example. One time I was going on a cruise on Saturday morning. On a Friday afternoon, I went on a listing presentation, and I was at my former company, and they didn't have like a template listing presentation. And I went to the front desk. I was like, "Hey, I got a listing presentation I'm supposed to go on, but do y'all have anything like I can take for this?" I mean, typically I just go in there and wing it, but this person I did not know. Normally I knew someone, so I could kind of get by in the relationship. This person, I didn't know him from Adam. And I was like, "Do you have anything I could take, like would share about the company?" And they did not. And I was like, "Okay." And the lady at the front desk at my company goes, "Just go online and like print off one and just take that one in there." So I went back, I printed one off, just found one online, Google searched it, and I would go to the listing presentation. And when I did not get it, and I could tell like the people were very disinterested and were not like, "Get on with yourself, leave." I mean, they were like very off-putting, and I could not figure it out. So as I was leaving, I was like, "Hey, let's just call it what it is. This was not a very good meeting. We didn't have rapport. We didn't connect. You're not hiring me. You said that you're interviewing other people today. Apparently, you've already made up your mind." He goes, "Man, I don't know where you got that thing, but I've already seen that once today, and you're not prepared. And they knew this presentation. You did not know this presentation, so I don't feel comfortable hiring." I mean, I was like, "Huh." And he's like, "Yeah, it was actually somebody from your company that brought in the exact same thing." What I realized was I had never reviewed this thing before. I just printed off Google. The guy that had that listing presentation earlier had actually printed that thing off and used the same thing, but he knew it and I did not. I was so ticked that I was unprepared. I wasn't mad at my company. I blame them, yes, but blame does not teach you anything. I could have blamed my company. I could have said like, these homeowners are crazy, they're unreasonable, whatever I want to say, versus go look at yourself in the mirror and be like, you're not enough. It's all your fault. You're not prepared. You did not have the ability to communicate and serve them at a deeper level. So I blame myself. because I felt like if you want to take responsibility of your life, the first place it needs to start is right here at home base. So I go on that cruise on Saturday morning, and it was, I don't even really remember the vacation, because I remember staying in that little tiny cabin with my friends, and they were all on the top of the pool deck. I stayed in that cabin, and I said, I will never, ever lose another listing presentation again, because I'm not prepared. And I started to build a listing presentation like, okay, if I was a seller, what would be important for me to know? And so I was really proud of the work that I did. I built my own listing presentation, and there are still some elements in our listing presentation today from that cruise. But in that cruise, I'm like, man, I'm not enjoying this vacation. And so when I talk about what happens in the unseens, I have won so much business as a result of saying, I'm going to stay in this cabin. I'm going to build this presentation. I'm not ever going to freaking lose on account of being unprepared and not knowing what I'm talking about again. So sometimes it just takes a bit of grit and determination by yourself to lock in and get it done, even if no one else knows what's happening. Proverbs 18:12, a man's gift makes room for him and brings him before great men. There's sometimes to where you may feel that, like, man, I really feel like I've worked hard. I really feel like I'm valuable. I really feel like I've got more to offer than maybe what I'm receiving. I have always been able to kind of come back to this verse and like, you know what? God knows whenever you are truly ready. God knows when you are prepared. God knows whenever, not just capabilities and skill, but also your heart. And sometimes things have not broken open maybe for you, or you have not moved into the position that you hope for because you're just not ready yet. When you're ready, the gift will make room for your talents, and it will bring you before great people. So I just want to say that there is a reward for preparation, dedication, for determination, and for commitment. Think about the life of David. David was a king of Israel. He was probably the most heralded king of that nation. And David was just a shepherd boy. He was a tiny little kid, and he was keeping watch over the flock whenever he was anointed king. And he didn't go from like these sheep to the king right out the gate. It took him years and years and years, actually well over a decade, to become the king. It's like, hello, I'm supposed to be the king. What's the deal? I'm still with these stupid sheep. No. There's something spoken into his future. There's something that he is moving towards with his life. But just because you're anointed doesn't mean you're ready. Just because you're called does not mean it's supposed to happen now. We have to be faithful in the small things sometimes before we're entrusted with many things. And sometimes we just have to tend the sheep, even if we feel like we're beyond that, even when we feel like it's time to graduate. It's not up to us to decide that. I believe that there's a lot of great companies that seem to be an overnight success, but people did not see the decade of what had happened before all of a sudden things broke open. I believe for Scout, there will come a moment to where things will break open when we were prepared for that moment to step in. And so I look at more so being prepared for that moment than like, why isn't it here yet? When is it supposed to be here? We want to go to another market. We want to do this. We want to add more value to more people. You know what? I'm going to wake up on Tuesday morning, and it may look like sheep. It may smell like sheep, but I know this is about preparation. I know this is about getting yourself, your heart right, your mind right, your skill right for the moment. So there's a couple observations of David that I want to impart to you. Number one is, just because God has anointed you does not mean you're prepared and ready to step into your destiny. Number two, authority comes by being prepared in private before you're made public. So that goes for our company, where people in Louisville, Kentucky don't know about us yet, but we're being prepared in private before we're made public. Number three, the enemy wants to compromise your greatness by undermining your identity. That little voice that gets in your ear and starts saying all this crazy stuff to you, undermining your identity, your authority, and the calling that's on your life. Number four is the enemy is assaulting your identity, because if he can destroy your identity, he can destroy your future. If you believe the lie, you lose your future. And we all are running our race. There is a finish and there's a prize worth receiving. And so if we start to look in the crowds, if we start to look at other runners, there's an incredible picture that I have, and I'm so thankful that somebody captured this. Years ago, Michael Phelps was in a race. I don't know. I don't even remember what Olympics it was, but he had won all these gold medals, and there was just one race that wasn't his best stroke. He has all these different strokes. This one's not his best. And he was getting beat bad. And I remember watching this, and I'm yelling at my TV. I'm like, swim! I don't even know. Like, I'm not even a big swimmer. But I'm like, this, like he's going for like 30 gold medals in a row. And I'm like, and he's getting smoked. And luckily, they're going back and forth, but he starts to gain ground. But I'm like, oh my gosh. And he won by 1/100th of a second. So 0.001. And it took him a while to award him as the winner, because little touchpads, it was so close. But as the final lap, when he's coming down, you see Phelps, so there's the breaststroke, you see him, he's gaining, but the guys ahead of him, and we're running out of pool, the pool needs to be longer. If we can just have a longer pool, he'll win. And there was a photograph right at the last second. The guy that was in the lane beside him looks at Phelps, and he didn't stay focused on the wall, and he lost. And sometimes we get pulled off, and we start to look at the crowd. We start to look at our competitors. We start to look at things, except fixing our eyes on the finish line, fixing our eyes on the mission, fixing our eyes on the vision and what we're committed to. We don't look around. Does that make sense? So the enemy's assault, he's wanting to undermine our future and our identity. Are we enough? Heck yeah, we're enough. We're freaking awesome. We're here. We're called in this moment, in Nashville, in this industry, at this time, in the prime of our life, to do something truly amazing that's life-changing for many, many, many people. Lastly there's a reason for the season of life that we're in. There's 4 seasons. You cannot fast forward into seasons oh man, we just finished the harvest. I want to harvest again. That's fun. I love getting all the fruit and vegetables and getting all the abundance. No, you got 3 more seasons that you're going to have to go through to get back to harvest. And so sometimes we want to kind of fast forward and I want to sell the house. I want to get more clients. I want to do more business. You got to go through the season in which you're in, and you got to embrace it and say, there is a gift in the wintertime. There is a gift in the springtime. There's a gift in the summertime. And I'm not going to fast forward. I'm just going to embrace the season and understand that there is a benefit to me. There's a benefit to the crop that we're producing. There's a benefit to the client that we're trying to serve. I'm not going to war against the seasons. There's no good in that. Principle number 3 is the purpose for greatness is the purpose of the kingdom of God. We are not the ends, we're the means to the ends. My hope for Scout is that people see our good work and glorify the Father in heaven. My hope is that people see what we're up to and they say, man, why do they do business the way they do? I hope that they have an encounter with something supernatural, something that just is not temporal just for this for this life or this season. Man, I had an encounter with a company that reflected the nature of God. When I know the nature of God, I know it to be radically generous. I know it to be in order. I know it to be excellent. When he created the world, it's in order. It's in balance. It's tight. It's operationally tight. It's beautiful. Aesthetics matter. Our pricing model matters. It's generous. So I hope people have an encounter with our company and they're man, that really is something I want to learn more about, or that why they do what they do. They've shown me, inspired me how I want to live in my company or how I want to live in my family. I hope it kind of roots back into something bigger than ourselves. Almost done. 2 slides. Dreams. When God gives you a dream, a desire, a vision, have confidence He will take away if you're faithful to develop and steward the gift. The gift is the dream and the vision. So it's not up to you to make it to become a reality. It's up to you to walk down the path, to pursue it. God will bring it to fruition, but we're in a joint venture with God. I don't know if you know this, but we have a partner. It's called God. It's supernatural. It's really awesome. There's a lot of reliance that we have on Him on a pretty weekly, daily, hourly, minute basis. When God puts a dream in your heart, you will get tested. So we certainly have had seasons at Scout to where we have been tested to the core. If you're tested, you are tested so that you understand the purpose of the dream. There has been seasons at Scout that have been unbelievably painful. I can look at them now and understand this has all been a part of the process. This has all been a part of the refining. This was necessary for where we are going. Number 3 is David killed the lion and the bear because they were in his way in his calling to greatness. There comes necessary endings. There comes times to where it's like, you know what? We're committed to a higher standard. We're committed to people or our clients first. There's going to be people along the way that just, I don't want to be client first. There's going to be people along the way who just don't want to be committed to a standard. And so our dreams and visions, we do have very high standards. So anything that's getting in the way of the calling, the vision, the mission, our company's greatness, out, killing it, not going to tolerate it. And that's not from like an angry, authoritative way. There's too much at stake. There's too many people who deserve to be blessed. There's too much value to add to folks than to have sacred cows. It's like, oh, we'll let you do it the way you want to do it. We'll let you make it about yourself. No, we can't do that. It just doesn't work for our business. Every other company that'll work great for, but not our business. Do the thing God's put in your heart. So John Eldredge, I really appreciate him as an author. There was a quote that he said one time that has never left me. It said, desire, so like what's in your heart, reveals design, and design reveals destiny. And so whenever I think about the desires that I have, the desires that you have, in a way, I believe you can trust your desires. If your desires are contributive to other people, if your desires are pure, if your desires are just, if your desires are life-giving, you can trust those things. If your desires are selfish, if your desires are manipulative, if your desires are to take, if your desires are, self-centered, that. But if you have pure desires, you can absolutely trust them. So when God puts something inside of your heart, even if it seems like an insurmountable mountain, or even if it seems like, man, it's never going to get here, it's going to take a decade, pursue it with all reckless abandonment. It's worth it. So the last thing is, don't pursue the dream over the God of the dream. Whenever you pursue greatness, a lot of times it's tied to a desire, it's tied to a dream, it's tied to a mission, it's tied to a purpose, it's tied to a vision. And so do not pursue the dream or the calling or the mission over the God of the dream. I think there comes times where we could arrive at serving 10,000 clients and helping them retain $100 million of their equity, and we could totally miss it. You could totally miss it. And the work that God could have done in art, and the basically who He wanted us to become. And so I don't want us to accomplish goals and missions without having the heart work done. And I don't want us to accomplish the things in the natural and miss the things that we could have experienced in the supernatural or the spiritual. So the principle 4 is, don't pursue the dream over the God of the dream. If you want something in life, you have to lean into the King of Kings and let Him work through you and in you to produce that result. So when we talk about the call to greatness is about servanthood. The call to greatness is about giving of your life. It's about sacrifice. It's about being diligent. It's about being disciplined. It's about being committed to the outcome and understanding that the reward probably is not going to be something that we experience here. Very few people. It's something that we're playing out in eternity. There's something that's much broader than this little dash of life that's going to show up on our headstone. Here's when you started, here's where you ended. It goes way on past that. So that is my call to you guys, is the call to greatness, and to understand maybe what we are trying to accomplish here at this company, and individually the commitment that we have to have in our heart as we step forward. So that is our Power Hour. I hope that this has been important or meaningful to you. This is some things that I've been working through the last couple of weeks. I would like to open up for maybe a couple, 2 or 3 people to ask a question, to make a comment, to share what has stood out to you